Hello and welcome back to my book channel. I'm Becca and today I wanted to do a really brief video about mental health book recommendations and ideas. The wonderful Nicole over at A Beautiful Chaos of Books is hosting a month-long readathon that's aimed at raising mental health awareness. So it's called the Mentalhealthathon, and this is something that I'm quite passionate about. I did work as a mental health nurse for 11 years. And it's something that I've always thought needs to be a bit more known about, basically. So I've only got a few recommendations of books that I have read and I would definitely say others should read. But then I've got lots of other ideas because even though it's something I'm passionate about, it wasn't really a thing to read fiction books. Like, they just didn't massively exist with good mental health rep back when I was nursing initially, and then over the years I kind of collected some, but for some reason I've just never got round to reading them. So I'll let you know about those and the mental health rep in them, but I can't recommend whether they're very good or not. But the first one is a definite recommendation. I've been banging on about this book all over social media since I first read it at the beginning of February, I think. March, something like that. And it's called And the Stars Were Burning Brightly by Danielle Joando. Now, this book is absolutely incredible. It really is one of the best books that I've ever read. It's YA. I would say it's aimed round about the ages of 16 to 19 maybe. Basically, there's a young boy and he finds his brother who has taken his own life by hanging, and then there's obviously all the grief and the wondering if there's any way that they could have prevented it or seen that it was going to happen. And I've done a full review of this book over on Goodreads and also in a previous wrap-up video, so I'm not going to tell you the whole thing, but this is incredible how it deals with grief and depression and bullying. It is just, it's beyond words, seriously. It really is a fantastic book. I think it's definitely a mental health book that everybody should read. And then one that most people has heard of is Eleanor, Oliphant is Completely Fine. The mental health rep in this one is depression, loneliness, some anxiety, things like that. But it's just like it shows how it's just a part of everyday life. Like, there isn't this massive event that happens in the book that causes mental health problems. This lady, it's just like an ongoing, long suffering kind of thing, and it just shows you how that it's just a normal everyday part of life for some people, and that they have to try and fight through every single day, as opposed to something happens and they deal with it and get on. So that is that's a really good book as well. And More Than It Hurts You by Darwin Strauss. Now, I have started reading this. I got to page 154 and I was struggling a bit. I was losing a bit of interest. It's very slow burn. This deals with Munchausen's by proxy, which is where the adult caregiver causes illness within the child to gain attention, sympathy, things like that. So it is mental health rep. I've not completely got to the whole part of where they've discovered what's happened yet, so I can't tell you if the mental health rep in this is good or not. It's just that is what this book is about, so that might be of interest to somebody. And the last one that I have definitely read and that I recommend is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. This features ASD rep, which is autistic spectrum disorder rep. It's a YA, and the young teenage boy in this, he is autistic, and it's showing you how he gets through life and how he views different things and how his emotions work. And then this is the group book for the readathon, and this is The Million Pieces of Nina Gail. I haven't read this, obviously I'm going to read this for the mental health readathon. And the mental health rep in this one, I've heard, is depression, anxiety and possibly psychosis. So that should be interesting. I've heard that it's really, really good, that book. And then, now these all now are ones that I haven't read. So I can't tell you whether they're any good or not, but these are just ideas. If you're looking for something or a particular type of mental health rep that you'd like to know more about, then this might help. The first one is The Prison Doctor. Now, this isn't obviously purely mental health or anything like that, but some of the cases and the prisoners that she works with do have depression, they have self-harm issues, things like that. So that it will be an interesting one, but not whole thing of mental health. Today I'm Alice. Now, this one deals with multiple personality disorder, and within the mental health professional community, there's debate as to whether multiple personality disorder even exists or whether it's part of something else. But if you are looking to read about something like that, this is an actual memoir of somebody who is diagnosed with that, whether it's, you know, controversial or not. And it goes from her being a child and growing up with this kind of dissociative change in identity type of thing. And The Last Illusion, now it's not properly mental health. It's not focused around mental health being a big part of the book. However, this is about a boy who was very, very badly abused. He was actually raised by his mother as if he was a bird. He was kept in a cage with other birds, and he ate insects and bird feed. So very, very badly abused and neglected. And the book kind of deals with when he was found and taken out of that environment, and the developmental delays he had, the emotional problems he had, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, all that was going on whilst he was trying to recover, because obviously he was having to deal with all this stuff that he'd gone through in his past that he'd been raised like. I've heard that that is an excellent book, but that it's quite harrowing and quite difficult to get through. And then the next one is 13 Reasons Why. Most people will have heard of this because of the Netflix series. It deals with depression, bullying and suicide. It sort of glorifies suicide a little bit, so you need to take this with a pinch of salt, but it is interesting. And then Status Anxiety. Now, this is non-fiction, obviously about anxiety, but it's about a very specific type of anxiety. This focuses on the kind of the feelings and our confidence and I guess anxiety about how we look in public, as in the kind of status we have in society and how well people think we are succeeding with things and how good our lives are. And I think this is really, really relevant at the moment, especially with all this #blessed kind of stuff going on and people only showing these perfect Instagrammable lives and Pinterest trying to show you how much of a crappy mum you are, and or is that just me? I don't know. But so this is just about how we present ourselves in society and this specific type of anxiety we get over how other people view us. And then The Hospital. Now, this is a memoir about a young girl being admitted to one of the old psychiatric asylums back in the 70s. She was admitted at age 12, and the synopsis doesn't actually say what was wrong with her, what they decided to admit her for, just that she'd come from a troubled home. And she was put through drug experiments and various treatment experiments. So that will be interesting if you are looking to read about the history of mental health. And then it's kind of a funny story. This is about a young man, and he is determined to succeed in life, but then things start going a bit wrong. The pressure gets too much for him, and he starts kind of restricting his food. He starts like feeling quite low in mood, and then he ends up nearly killing himself. So he's admitted to a psychiatric hospital or ward, and then it's about the other patients that he meets there. So he meets people who self-harm. There's somebody who's struggling with OCD. I'm not sure if there's psychosis rep in this one as well, but there's definitely anxiety, depression, self-harm, suicide. And am I normal yet? Quite a few people have already heard of this. Holly Bourne is quite a well-known author. This book is mainly about OCD and how she is trying to get through life, medication and all the, the obsessive things that she has to do that are all part of her daily life. And then we've got The Shock of the Fall. Now, this is another one that deals with the loss of a loved one and the grief and depression that comes afterwards. And I've heard, but I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me on this, but I think there is psychosis rep in this one as well. And then Paperweight. This is primarily about anorexia. The young girl is admitted to an eating disorders clinic, but she's also quite low in mood, quite depressed, quite suicidal. So there's lots of different things going on there. And Mad Girl. This is a kind of, not a memoir, but a kind of explanation really of her life with OCD and the way it's kind of affected everything around her and things that she does. I've heard that this is really, really well written. And this one, I've not really heard of The 7 Imperfect Rules of Elvira. I haven't really heard of this before. It was just one that I spotted in a charity shop and it looked interesting. Basically, Elvira is a neuroatypical. She's possibly on the ASD spectrum. She's got some obsessive kind of tendencies. She's got quite rigid thinking. She likes strict routine. And then something happens and all that has to change, and it's about her trying to cope with that in her life. And then just as some kind of out of the box ideas, I guess if you read any of these types of books, these are foster carer memoirs. There's lots of different people who write them, but Kathy Glass was one of the first people who did it. She kind of started the trend. Lots of these include children who've got some kind of mental health problem, learning disabilities, post-traumatic stress disorder, just stuff like that. So I guess if you're looking for something that isn't total mental health, those are really, really interesting. And then I guess anything about psychopaths, sociopaths, things like that. You could even say true crime about serial killers, things like that. Psychopathy and sociopathy are mental health problems. So for me, I would say go ahead and include those in the mental health readathon. And one that's, I guess, a little more outside the box than the others. This is more neurological than mental health, but I kind of relate them. This is about a neurologist and the interesting cases and patients that he's worked on during his career. And like I said, anything with serial killers will probably come under this category. So I have actually listened to this and it's absolutely fantastic. Very, very interesting. They don't really talk about mental health, but obviously serial killers usually are diagnosed as psychopaths, and that is a mental health problem. So that is everything that I want to talk to you about today. I hope that I've given you some ideas if you're going to take part in the readathon, or if you really just want to get to know a bit more about different mental health conditions. If you've got any favourites that I haven't mentioned or that I don't seem to know about, then please comment or message me and let me know, because I'm always on the lookout for more. So thank you for watching. Bye.